everybody. Sam Maniatis.
Yeah, so just, I guess, I'll tell you a little bit about my company. Well, Total Home Training. We started the home training business about a little bit over 10 years ago. I saw the niche for home-based training, and so I started to. I was a one-man show, so I basically started just doing home training. I started just to seek it out, word of mouth, talk to people, and so I was a one-man show. Worked about 30-40 hours a week, right? So, but when you're talking about a career in personal training, or you're talking about a career in fitness, I don't know if it's the same as every other job. It's just like there's no hours, right? There's no set time. You don't start at 8 and finish at 4, right? You start at 6 a.m. and finish at 9 p.m., right? So even though you're saying you're working 30 hours a week, it could be close to 60 hours, because if you have a client at 6, 7, 8, and 9, and your next client's at 2 o'clock, and your next one's at 5 o'clock, and the last one's at 7 o'clock, it's a long, long day. So it takes a little bit of a type of a person to get into this business. But before I get into that, I wanted so it was a one-man show. I was doing it. We presently have 7 trainers on the road now. So we service sort of Montreal and the South Shore and the West Island, all around. So my job is basically to train the trainers that are coming into the field and sort of getting them into our system and teaching them how to do home-based training, because it gets a little tricky, right, with home-based training, because you're working with very limited equipment or very small amount of equipment and small spaces. So you need to be very creative in what you're doing, and you have to also provide a service. I mean, I was listening to the presenter before, and he made a very important point. And in that point, it was basically, he said, what was it, Trump? She said that character trumps credentials. And it's basically the same thing in fitness, right? If you think about it, why would somebody pay you? Why would somebody pay you for 5 years? Pay you every week for 5 years, $150 a week. And why would they look at your face at 6 o'clock in the morning? First day in the morning, why would they look at you and stay with you for 5 years and pay you? Trust me, it has nothing to do about what you know. That's right. It's because they like you. You bring something to the table, right, besides fitness. Fitness is the service. But what do you bring to the table? You bring your personality, you bring your knowledge, and all the other characters that you may have, which is being punctual, being honest, being, respectful. And we teach some of my trainers that just come into the business, and I tell them, the first thing I teach them is, when you go to somebody's home, you take your shoes off. Really? Yeah. You take your shoes off. But what if they say, keep them on? I say, you take them off anyway. You take them off anyway. Right? So it's like, small things like that go a long way. So it holds true also in fitness, that who you are is a lot more important than what you know or your credentials say. We also have a facility that we staff. It's like a facility like this, but we sort of have the contract for the city. It's the city of St. Lambert in the South Shore. So basically we have our staff in there, our trainers that are working on the floor, and it's a great little network for us, because as you see through the presentation, basically what we do is we provide also certification for trainers in Montreal. So that means I personally was myself, putting through 100 trainers at least a year into the industry. I was certifying over 100 trainers a year. So once these trainers went into the industry, right, so all of a sudden you did your certification, you have your paper, it says you're certified personal trainer. what do you do with it? Besides put it on your wall. Your phone's not gonna ring, right? Maybe your friends that know you're doing it might call you, but how do you get into the business? So we were able, with the facility, to get those trainers to start doing some sort of work, sort of being in the field. So for yourself, if fitness is your passion, and if it's not your passion, then it's not your field. Right? If you don't love it, then don't do it. If you don't love it, if you don't love it, don't do it. If you're getting into it for anything else besides the love of fitness, then do not get into it. So that's the number one thing. And to make the point, and to make a point, right? When I got into it in 1993, I was into it before, but in terms of fitness, I volunteered for 10 years. I volunteered for 10 years. 10 hours a week for 10 years. I volunteered for 10 years for 10 hours a week without making a penny. Do you know what that made me? An expert. That made me an expert in my field. I put in 10 years, 10 hours a week, and that made me an expert. Because I trained everybody. I trained everybody with every situation and every condition. But I did it because I loved it. It wasn't that I was doing it because I wanted to give back. I wasn't doing it because I wanted to learn more. Well, yeah, maybe learn more, but I did it because I loved it. So this is a real passionate type of an industry. And if you have that passion, you'll go a long, long way in this industry. Does anybody want to go in this industry? Okay. We have one person.
Exercise
So the
science
rest of you
students,
just
athletic
listen to the
therapy.
story, right? So the rest of you can just listen to the story, and I'll wrap it up real quick. So there's one of you that's interested in this industry, and to make the point, so when we have a class of 20 students, right, and they go through our course, there's probably one that continues in the industry. There's probably one that continues in the industry. Not more than that. And because I'm too easy, I let them pass too. But today, one of my most important things that I'm doing today, besides coaching my son, right, is I work with a program called Health and Hope. It's a shelter for homeless men, and it's the first program of its kind that I know. I started to volunteer there and just go in there once a week and just provide fitness tips and talk to them about their health and fitness. And it was probably the last thing that anybody would think that they need. Everybody would think they need food and they need shelter, but I was talking to them on another level, on a level of fitness, and they really took to it. And then we would talk about fitness and what they can eat and how they can exercise and what kind of stuff they can do. So a long story short, what happened is after 2 years and 2 years or so volunteering, they actually got a grant. Somebody actually gave them a grant for fitness. So it's called the Health and Hope Program, and I'm very proud of it that we go there, my team goes there, and we provide fitness for the homeless, shelter for men. And the other project, which I'm also very proud of, is the Women's Healthy Heart Initiative, which was started about 3 years ago. And it was basically to raise awareness for women's heart health and how the conditions or symptoms could be exhibited a little bit differently than traditionally thought. Because traditionally they thought heart condition or heart disease was a man's disease. Well, believe it or not, there's more women dying of heart disease today than men. So I'm very proud to be part of that program also. I am in the radio with CJED. I have been with them for about 4 years and on different shows, Fitness Monday, Fitness Friday, Dan Laxer, and all these different things. And this is a real blast for me to go on the radio and sort of talk about fitness. It's just a fun thing to do. You know? Does anybody have any questions? Yes.
Like, who can volunteer in those programs?
Pardon me?
Who can volunteer in those programs?
Anybody?
Anybody?
Which program?
Like,
The Women's Healthy Heart?
yeah.
that's a little bit of a touchy thing, because what happens is the volunteers there are the fitness consultants, ourselves, the nutritionists, and then the rest of the team are doctors and nurses, right? Because they do it on their time, but they're doing their blood work, they're checking their heart, and so it's sort of professional type volunteering. Yeah. But the shelter, by the way, the women, the shelter for men, they're opening the women's shelter probably by the summertime. Nazareth House, you can check it up there. Any other questions? It's called Nazareth House, Nazareth.
Can you spell it?
Nazareth.
Like the band.
Yeah.
Okay, like I see like you do a lot of things, but over time, how like, what is it that you have that made you be able to land all those things that you're doing right now, like
Passion.
the radio?
Passion.
That's
Passion.
That's it, girl.
When you do something because you love it, you become very good at it.
But you had to meet people along the way, like you do
Absolutely.
the radio, and but I guess it's the passion that you had.
Yeah, because the thing is, when you're in a gym, right? If I would give you a piece of advice, right? When you go to a gym, like if you look at this gym, well, somebody was presenting, I went outside to look at the gym. There's not one instructor on the floor. There's not one instructor on the floor, right? So if you're working as a volunteer at a gym, okay? Most of my volunteers, they sit there and they read a book like this. You are just piece of the furniture. You're part of the furniture. And then I ask myself and I ask them, why are you here? Right? So if you get up and you start interacting with people and helping them with their technique and giving them tips and being involved in your environment, people feed off of you. They see it. They say, hey, I like what she's doing. I like what he's doing. And that's how people come to you. Right? When you're sitting there reading a book, nobody wants to ask you where the toilet is, right? Because they feel like they're disturbing you, right? But if you're open, right, and you're walking around and you're greeting people and you're talking and you're learning and you're looking and you're asking questions like, why are you doing that exercise? What's the purpose of that exercise you're doing? Well, and you say, well, I have a better alternative, or it's a nice exercise, never thought about it. So there's different things that you can do in terms of having these people come to you. Is there any other questions? So, I do want to, this is also very important. I talked about taking about 10,000 hours to be considered sort of a pro in your industry, or an expert in the industry. Certification is very important. Very, very important. So now if you're passionate and you love what you're doing and you get good at what you do, you better have some business skills. Because what's going to happen is, I'm going to tell you straight out, if you're passionate and you're good at what you do, you will burn out. If you do not have business systems in place, you will burn out. And that includes policies, procedures, payment plans, all kinds of systems that are into your business. And trust me, I went through it and burned out more than once. I was burnt out, didn't even know I was burnt out. Right? Till you started to sort of structure your business, your passion. So this is very important. So now I tell all the trainers that if you're interested in fitness and you go to a conference and you're looking at programs and trainings, one of those courses should be on business. You should always complement your training passion with business, because you'll not go far. You'll wind up on medication. And this is true, right? Don't follow the crowd. Wherever the crowd goes, go the other way. Okay, so when you're in the gym and everybody's in the treadmill, you go on the Stairmaster. All right?
Why is that?
Well, look,
It is.
if I'm working in the gym and she's working in the gym and we both have the same credentials, and she takes a client and she puts them on a treadmill, and I take a client and I put them on a treadmill, and then we put them on a leg press, and then we put them on a chest press, right? It's like a cookie cutter. I mean, like, what's the, right? Now, if you're doing that, and I'm saying, come on over here, I want you to do some jumping jacks over here, I want to do some line drills over here, I want you to do some mobility work here, okay? And then I want you to move with some free weights here. So now you're saying, yeah, I want to do that. I want to do that. So if you're following everybody, all the trainers, and you're doing what every trainer is doing, then what distinguishes you apart from everybody else? And I'm not just saying to do it to be different. Just start to think, and this is really my point, right? Have an open mind, learn from the best. Who are the best? Well, I have people that I learn from, and there's people in your industry, whatever industry it is. Start to read or look at what they're doing and why they're doing it, and start to develop your system. Websites. Does it matter to have a nice website?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Yes, but apparently they tell me Facebook's more important.
We'll see.
Well, because as of right now, when I'm working with my tech guy, right? So we have our in terms of business now we're talking, right? So you have your web page and my Facebook. So when we look at business, there's more business coming in through Facebook than it's coming in from, so if I have so much money to spend, right? I may come to you and say, hey, listen, I have $1,000 to spend on marketing, right? Should I fix up my web page or should I work on my social media? What are you gonna tell me?
I'm going to tell you, if you're going to send people somewhere and pay for it, you might as well send them somewhere good. So push your website. First things
Wait,
first.
yeah, well,
That's your conversion point. That's where
yeah, I
you
mean,
get people
when you
gonna
have
join
a sort of a decent website, right? Anyway, so this is basically what they're saying is, like, this is the tech guys that are working on my business, and they're looking and saying, listen, you're getting more traffic through Facebook than through your website. And we're not doing a lot on social media. So, does it matter?
Yes.
Academic background. Does academic background matter?
Yeah. Well, you need to know your fundamentals, and that's where school comes into play. The certification is
Some of the best
speciality.
trainers have no background in training. Training. Doesn't mean they're not good. It just means they studied architecture in school, right? And decided to make a change. Now, do you need? Of course, you need certification. You need to have some sort of certification. Yes.
But does that have to do with like which public you're targeting? Like, because some people, I guess, they would like to have a trainer that talks to them in terms of how their body functions, or someone would prefer just like tell them that you're gonna get ripped. So you know.
Yeah, well, the thing is, and that's where the good trainer comes in, right? So as a trainer, when you're going in and you interview your client, okay, you have to see at what level they're at, so that you present information. So my client doesn't really care about physiology or how the body works. Me telling them how the muscles contract while you're doing your squat is really irrelevant to that, right? So you have to know how to use your information and when to use it and how to use it. So it's important that you know your stuff so that when you do have to use it, you can use it, but it's really irrelevant for me to tell most of my clients different terms or anatomical terms that are just sort of like, it doesn't even make, it doesn't even get the message across. If I want somebody to do something, I need them to understand what I'm saying. So if I'm saying bend at your hips, right? It's bend at your hips, right? There's nothing. Insurance, do you need insurance? Initially you don't need insurance, right? Eventually you will need insurance, and eventually the insurance will actually send you back. they will, what I'm trying to say is, insurance is important as a personal trainer, and when you're starting out you really don't need it, but eventually you will need it. But once you start to get more busy, you have to get specific with your insurance. So if you're training, let's say for example with the elderly, so you may need insurance for that. Or if you're working with teens, or if you're working with women, pre and postnatal, or if you're working with diabetics, whatever your niche, you have to get an insurance that's more specific. So what I'm trying to say is, originally when you start, it's very general. You have a general insurance as a personal trainer. But as you start to get into your niche, you need to get a little more specific, or more specific, obviously, with your insurance. Do you need a nice car?
Oh,
No.
now I have a question about the insurance. What was the insurance about? Like if someone's damaged because of the type of training you give, or?
Well, at the point, if you're starting out, the general insurance is about $200-300 a year. It's a general insurance. You send in your certification, you send in your CPR, and away you go, and cross your fingers.
It's for you or it's for
It's for you.
For you.
For you. It's for you.
And she meant, is it for you or your clients? Like, it's for the clients?
Well,
yeah.
it's for you, because what if you hurt one of your clients,
Okay,
Or
yeah, yeah.
something
right?
happens.
Because you're always liable for everything exercise that you give your client. So if you give something to your client, and your client gets hurt, and they can't work, you are liable,
Oh.
So it's cool.
Mhm.
right? So you need to be able to be covered for that.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yes.
No,
Yeah,
5 minutes.
absolutely. Good stuff. Okay. So, actually, the rest of the stuff is just stuff.
So you didn't answer, is it important to have a nice car?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Well,
I don't know.
right? And the thing is that important to have a lot of toys, right? Because the point I'm trying to make is a lot of the times is some of the trainers that come in, they think that they need a lot of stuff to get started, right? We don't. I mean, I can put all of you through a workout right here with nothing till you beg for me to stop.
Image isn't everything, and that's what the car
we can
is.
go into the gym and have lots of toys, machines and weights and everything. So that's what I'm trying to say. Is it important? Well, not really. Any other questions? Our website is totalhometraining.com if you want to go take a look.
What? Say it again?
totalhometraining.com. My email is there, sam@totalhometraining.com. There's certifications if people are interested, if that's a career path you want to take. You really got to ask yourself a couple of questions. And we give the certification like 6 times a year, something like that, in Montreal, if you're interested in that certification. And there's a lot of students that come through the exercise science department of Concordia University. Every class has a couple of them that come through there. So that's it. Thanks for your time and thanks for being patient.